Today we're going to be talking about all the things that they don't tell you about film acting in your classes and in your drama school. Well, good evening. I'd like to think of this as alternative programming. If you're sick to death of hearing about military conflicts anywhere in the world, this is your one-stop shopping for learning about things which really aren't going to change the planet. Well, it's true. The world continues to turn on its axis, and we'll continue to do all the things that we can. I think one of the worst things that we've got going on right now, a little bit like being an actor, is the impending sense of absolute inability to do anything or make a difference in anything.
Well, I think we make a difference, really. We make a difference by by really being good to each other. And I think that is really what sum up. If I can sum up all my learnings through life, I think that would be the first one. I think that you really can influence people. Remember when we started doing all these courses 20 years ago? Nobody knew about screen acting, or in the Spanish world. And I produced my first book in screen acting in Spanish language, and that was the first book ever, about that. So, and now, everybody's asking, for classes and stuff. So I everybody understands better this world of acting in front of a camera. And I think I must say that I think we both collaborate a lot, with spreading the word of the necessity for the actors to learn their craft also in movies and on camera. We've done the first postgraduate university course, and that was 60 credits. It was a lot of hours, 50 hours, I think, in total. And we had a great time. For 5 years, we did that with the university, and it was just screen acting, and that was great. But anyway, 2008 and 9 came. Was a problem also to get afloat with things, and people didn't really have money to spend, and so we did a lot of spin-offs from that wonderful program that we had, and we developed workshops, and also a lot of classes that they were presential. And then the COVID came, and we find out that really was also very nice to have this one-to-one conversation through Zoom, through Skype, through whatever, to be able to really do what we like the most, which is act in front of a camera. And we discovered that during the COVID time that was also a way of having more time with the person and being more personal, and we like that. And here we are doing classes on all in well, not all. We have a mixture of presential and also online courses. And anyway, we are also writing the second book in screen acting, and this time I think that we can do it also in English. So you're happy.
Yeah. So to share with all of you fine people out there is a lot of the stuff that we are talking about or have talked about, and many of the discoveries that we've made over the past, let's see, 2 years now. Well, no, the 2 years that we've been doing this, such as analyzing show reels and watching actors through this little window that we have here. We've learned a great deal there, but also it's got to do with the last 20 years where we've been teaching exclusively film acting, not only here in Spain, but in 8 other countries around the world. And we've done it with about 5,000 people so far and more than 16,000 hours. So we've kind of like managed to narrow down the things which are and are not important. Now, I did a live stream last year where I touched on many of these things, but now I have my cohort the lady Serna with me, is that it's always great to have these sorts of things, because what it ends up being is a sort of combination between us, a conversation between us where we
Yes.
where we kind of
Discover more things, and we are talking, looking for the words, the right words that can inspire you to really do your work better. Really.
no, and this is the curious thing for me, is that virtually all of the training I've helped people with and I've worked people with has been in a completely different language.
Yes, which is Spanish, and you do it perfectly well. And yes, and I know that when you are doing things in English, for instance, we did 2 workshops in Luxembourg, and it was really interesting because you had to search for the words, things that in Spanish it comes to you naturally. So we learned.
Yeah,
a lot.
that's weird.
Yes.
It's weird when I have to look for the word in English.
Yes.
It's quite kind of tragic, really. So the things that we always start out our classes and courses with is we explain to everybody the things that everybody just needs to stop worrying about. Okay?
Yes.
Why do we say that? Is because when we come into training, when we go into a class or a course, or we're doing 3 or more years at a drama school, they tell us there's a lot of things that we should be worried about. Now, what happens? So many
possible to accomplish in the times of a movie set, really.
So one of the things that strikes us is as human beings, we tend to be more worried about the things that are dangerous, negative, or detrimental to us and those around us, rather than the things which are positive and useful and worth concentrating on. Now, this is why we remember bad news more easily than we remember good news. This is why we pay attention when something negative has happened. This is a list of all of our evolution things that appeal to our evolutionary psychology, which makes us obsessed with the negative. Okay?
Well, it's just to not repeat it again. No, it's what we learned.
Yeah, what have we learned here?
Learned here.
This is
well, don't do it again.
Yeah,
so that's it.
That's
right?
That's definitely one of the things we've learned.
So let's talk today about the things actors shouldn't be worried about.
Yeah, one of the questions we have here, Laura Sanz, actriz, who is in Madrid. When are we going to do presential classes in Madrid?
Well, in Madrid is difficult for us. We are trying this summer to do also in Ciudad Rodrigo, which is a very intensive course of 200 hours, and we'll try to do it this summer.
Did we do 200 hours? We don't do 200 hours. Are we doing it 200
12
hours?
days. Yes, 12 days, 10 hours.
Yeah, but that's 1,000.
That's
120 hours.
120. Sorry, yes.
40, 45. The 200. We're going to do 200 hours in 10 days.
No.
That's right. We're going to be doing 20 hours a day.
No. It's impossible. Yeah. No, 120. I'm sorry.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That's more than most people will do on front of a camera in a drama school in 3 years.
Of course. But that is our point. The idea is that we have a combination between online classes and also presential classes, that they are very, very useful for you, because
I think we have to call them in-person.
In-person classes.
Yeah,
okay.
like when you do a class in person,
okay.
or practical classes.
Or
practical classes.
Okay,
that's what we do.
Okay. So I don't know you, but I find out that they were extremely good for us, and for us, because we get to know you much better than being there, in a group, and also for you, because you do constantly exercises every day, every hour that you are with us, and you can do 2 hours a week, and then you have a lot of characters that you have practiced, and it's very, very invigorating.
Well, let me say something about when you said exercise. We don't do exercises.
We do it.
We just do it.
Yes.
One of the ways that we learned pretty early on is because we're always wondering, we have very small classes, and our problem has always been, how are we going to make the most progress in the shortest amount of time? I personally believe, and I think you do as well, I personally believe that I personally believe that all these sort of exercises that people do in classes is just a lot of padding, right? What it's really doing is distracting us from the real thing that we should be doing more of, which is acting.
In front of a camera.
Yeah, exactly.
which is, in a lot of theater schools, they really don't do. Don't do, or do very little, and not with the conditions that they should be. More and more now they are doing it because, everything is cheaper. The technical stuff is cheaper. But when we started, really, we were the first ones that, they had a high definition, that we really wanted to, to have all this quality material for our actors, then to have a video book. Anyway, so we were pioneers on
Video book. Whenever
sorry.
you hear us say video book, that's what they call a showreel here in
Showreel,
Spain. Because
sorry.
there's a great tradition of using English words in the completely incorrect manner.
Yes, that's true.
Right, get this. People call jogging, right? They call it footing.
Footing, yes. And what do you call it?
It's jogging.
Jogging. Well, jogging for us is jogging.
No, that's juggling.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm working with here? You see that?
Okay, so
Right,
let's
so
go.
let's dive headlong into what we're going to be talking about here, because what we always do is we always tell people what the things they shouldn't be worried about. Neil says, warm-up exercises confuse me. Nobody warms up their voice before actual conversations in real life.
Exactly.
Well done, Neil. That's the way to go.
Yeah, of course.
The only time I would suggest that you have to do a vocal warm-up exercise is obviously if you're going on stage, because you're going to be talking a hell of a lot more than people normally talk in life. The reason that you're doing that is to get your tongue and lips and everything else going, and just to get your instrument working. But quite frankly, acting on camera, it's quite the opposite is true.
Yes,
because one of the things that we have to be very careful with is we have to be really careful that we don't show any of that acting technique that we might have learned anywhere else.
Exactly.
This is the reason why they end up casting people who've never done a lick of acting in their life, because what they bring to the table is authenticity. And that's one of the things that we have a tendency to lose sometimes. So let's go ahead and dive in, as
Let's
they say.
start live diving.
Without further ado, okay. The first thing that we're going to talk about is something that everybody does at the start of classes or the start of exercises before they try to really smell that invisible lemon they have in front of us. And what we're going to tell you is you don't have to worry about it. In fact, if you're going to be worrying about this, you're just worried about the wrong thing. And the first thing up is relaxation. Don't worry about it. If you're going to be tense, you're going to be tense. You're going to be relaxed, you're going to be relaxed. But quite frankly, relaxation is one of those things that the more you try to relax, the more tense you become. Anything to add?
Yes, I found that, in real life, relaxation is not something that we consider or that we are looking forward to have this relaxation. At the contrary, the times that we are more relaxed is when something comes up, to me it happens in the bathroom, for instance. I have these wonderful ideas, or when I go to bed and I, suddenly, or when I wake up. So really, yes, it's true that when you are relaxed, things happen to you that you are perhaps more creative. You lose fears. You are more in a creative mood. But also there is a way of actually tricking yourself or hacking yourself, which is if you have things to worry about, they are not the things that they are going to stop worrying about. You have to really
say that again. I didn't quite catch that. What do you mean?
I mean that when you are the things that you. First, you don't have to worry. Second, why? Because you are there and you have to be present and you have to be there as much as you can, in action. What does it mean in action? Action means that when we are talking, we want things, and those are the actions. As actors, we have to choose which are these actions, these actions are. So what we have to do after the choices is really having them there in front of you and go for them with commitment. And so in that moment of acting, you don't need to be relaxed. It's at the contrary. You have to hack yourself, saying, okay, that's my commitment. I'm going to do this. That is my action. I'm going to lie. I'm going to love. I'm going to whatever is what, it was the intention of before the words that you choose. Then, so when you are occupied with all this, you are relaxed. Why? Because you have an objective. You have a way, a path. And relaxation is not the thing that you want, because nobody wants to be relaxed in a normal conversation.
What I would say about that is that if we try to separate the act of ourselves not being physically tense from what we're going to do, we're screwed.
Yes.
Okay, because by the very nature of having a commitment to something, that we will enter into a state of tension.
Exactly.
It's just a given. So my advice is don't worry about it. Look, you're going to have to do it for your life. You're going to have to do it. The other thing is, if you're somebody who has a tendency to do this, be conscious of that. People have lost track of what their drama training was supposed to mean and what it was supposed to do. Okay? This whole exercise, all these exercises we do with the back, stretching our back, our legs, and all the rest of it, breathing, and everything else is about that. It's about intending to place this memory of correct posture and balance in our bodies. Is how Alexander technique works. So when it comes to us doing everything on a sort of normal everyday basis, that we will be conscious of those things and they will go away. But when it comes down to actually being committed to a moment in acting, we're going to be pretty damn tense.
We cannot be concentrated on concentration. No?
Well, that's our next point. That's our next point. Don't bury the lead.
Well, no, don't try to be Zen, because you're not gonna. You never are Zen when you are talking or you want something. And you remember, you talk when you want something, when you have this action, this commitment of something that you want to say, and it's nonsense to doing otherwise.
That was relaxation. Now, there's something I want to address here, because we have a question from Lucinda, who has a question for us here. And she asks, I have a photo shoot tomorrow. Any tips for relaxing for the first few shots? I always feel a bit rigid. Lucinda, I have a slew of advice for you. If you want to stick around towards the end, I'm going to give it to you, because otherwise it's going to take me about 8 minutes to explain it. But hopefully it'll be something that'll be very, very useful to everybody. And this is not about when you do a photo shoot, it's not about being passive, and it's not about following orders, and it's not about being relaxed. It's about knowing exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But I'll get to that a little bit later. The next thing that we'd like to talk about, which is absolutely not important to anybody when it comes to acting, is the following word. And this is what everybody's worried about. It's this. Everybody is trying to concentrate.
Concentrate on remembering the lines.
Concentrate on where the lights are. Concentrate on what you're going to be doing next.
Concentrated, or sometimes, if you are of nature of distraction, like Scotty is, not to be distracted, for instance. Exactly. Because, you are, exactly, you are influenced, and you have to be influenced as an actor with everything that happens, with the context, with the silence of the other person that you are talking, with, your own ideas, if something happens in the set, you can also, take it for this new excitement, this new thing that happens, and that you can absorb and play with it, because we are playing.
If I can say something about concentration, is trying to concentrate is like trying not to think of an elephant. The more you try not to think of an elephant, the more you think of an elephant. The fact is that relaxation, concentration, these are two sort of byproducts of effectively being engaged or committed to something. Okay? If we choose what we're committed to, and it's interesting enough for us, we're going to be concentrated. One of the reasons why why we're actually distracted on a film set is because we're not entirely sure what the hell it is we're supposed to be doing. Now, there's a great amount of filmmaking which we're going into the game and we're not entirely sure how we're going to play it, but at least we have a strategy. When we come to the conditions that we find there, that's when our tactics will change. But we need some kind of strategy. As I always say, a bad plan is better than no plan at all.
Okay. Now let's talk about something.
Oh, no. So you didn't want to add anything there?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to add one additional thing. Is that we eliminate the need to concentrate when we've already decided exactly what it is we're going to do. Okay. That doesn't mean we've defined exactly how we're going to do it, but at least we've decided what it is we're going to try and pull off here. Remember
what
that
action? This action that you alone had chosen on your analysis of text. That is the thing that you know. Sometimes you have to also have an emotional start, for instance, to do a scene. And so that is interesting, because then you have to prepare yourself to reach a point where you are 100% with this emotional state that would allow you to do the correct action. But normally, most of the times people just talk. And when we are talking, is because we want something from the other person, or we want to understand what's going on, or there is always an action before we speak, and sometimes while we are speaking.
Well, there's another thing which I think is very, very important here. One of the important things that comes out of that tactic that we're playing, or that strategy we've decided upon, is that we have to allow ourselves to be contextually distracted, which means that there are other things that are going to happen which we're just going to let happen. If we want to scratch our nose, we're going to scratch our nose. If we want to play with a pencil on the table, we're going to think about picking up the pencil. Okay, it might be inappropriate that we do that. It might be wrong, but also it might be the completely correct thing to do.
But don't mistake activity with action.
Fine, but what I'm just using that as an example of how we can be distracted.
Okay, but because one thing is...
Because the other reason is, look, if the basis of all improvisation is to never say no and always say yes, the first person we have to learn to listen to is ourselves. We actually have to listen to what's going on inside our own actions and head and everything else that's going to happen, because otherwise we're just going to quite simply play this and that's it, good night.
No, it's... I always say that 90% for me, 90% of really my concentration goes to observe myself and understand, why I couldn't reach this, or why this thing that I planned was different. Because that allows me to understand a lot about myself, about the things that I have to do, the next character and the next job. So, I think that seeing yourself, watching yourself also with not a judging thing like, oh, I'm gonna be bad, or wow, I'm not gonna be able to do that, is not really the good start. And there is another point there when where you can actually hack yourself this emotion to a positive one. We'll see it.
Yeah, so the bottom line in terms of concentration is, my advice for all and sundry is, don't worry, you're going to do something else which is much more interesting than trying to concentrate. It's curious. It's peculiar, because I think one of the first chapters of An Actor Prepares by Konstantin Stanislavski is about circle of concentration. But what we have to remember is, and I'm going to be a complete heretic here, is that Stanislavski's talking out of his arse. Because quite frankly, if you are worried about concentrating, you're worried about the entirely wrong thing.
No, that is not possible. What you have to be concentrated is in this plan that you have when you analyze the text and you say, okay, here, what I'm going to do is to convince him. Here, what I don't even use the word.
I don't even use the word concentrate. I don't use the word concentrate because
you're studying it.
Well, it's a generalized external expression or word that expresses somebody who's focused on a particular thing. Okay, and the trouble with that is the concentration is you're actually going to be considering several different things simultaneously.
No, when you are concentrated at home, analyzing your text, that's what I'm saying. When you're really studying your text and you are choosing this, the actions that you have behind your words, there, you can have a strategy, a plan, and there you go. You go when you are thinking on the thing that you have to do next. You don't have to be concentrated. You just are thinking it.
Neil says a thing here, which we're going to address in a moment, about emotion and how everything changes, because that's another thing that we...
Yeah, but let's first talk about the next one, right? Because they're going to kind of order.
Yeah, okay.
Stop worrying about character, really, yes.
Okay, so this is another piece of heresy that nobody really is at home with. Character doesn't exist. Character is a word that we use to genuinely represent the person that you are playing in this film, TV show, or movie. Film or theatre play, I should say. this play. But character doesn't really exist, and I'll tell you why. When you play Hamlet, you will never become Hamlet. All you become is somebody who's pretending that they're Hamlet. Now, what does that mean? That means you have to stop worrying about doing something which is so distant or far from yourself that what you're trying to do is to convince yourself that you're doing something which isn't you. The trouble is, on camera, is that we have to approximate who we are and start there. Not jump to something which is distant or far away. We actually have to start with ourselves.
Normally in theater, they put us the carrot of a character very far away, in a stick. And then we have to just, understand what is this character and what, the author says and what the director might want. And, and things get complicated because we are going to have, biographies of this character that we'll never really are going to be able to play because, so in theater we do that. We study the characters because we feel more confident in the way that, that because we have to understand the little things that the people in the audience might see, how we walk, but in theater, how we walk, okay, there is sometimes that is important, but many of the times what we have to worry is not this. Character is just a convention between actors and directors, between all the team of a film set, but to speak freely about things that perhaps they cannot say, like you're an idiot, right? So we say, okay, the character is an idiot. And we say, no, it's kind of practical, That's why, how we define the character is with adjectives, and that is another problem.
And this is an interesting thing, I think, is that watch any interview with an actor when they're asked about their character, you'll see their sort of eyes roll back into their head, and there's a reason for that, is because their character's got very little to do with them anymore. It's got to do with how it was edited, how it was put together, and what everybody else thinks of it. And this is something that we have a little bit more control over in theatre because we're there from beginning to end of the damn play. But when it comes to film and television, one of the things that happens is that we're a long way away from being able to control all of those things. That's certainly a given.
So look at that. If you think that is a character doesn't exist, and it's you, okay, and it's you wanting things. You want things like the character, so you want to kill someone. Well, yeah, sometimes we want to kill someone in our lives. There is always a lot of parallels that you can do with this character to find this, these actions playable for you, and then you're going to be original without wanting to be original. You're going to because you come from a context that everybody else already understands. When the director chooses you, when they think that you are good for a part, the character, you don't have to worry about any of this, and when someone also calls you for a casting, you don't have to worry about the character neither. You have to worry about the things that they want to see in that text. Yes, what are the actions that you can play, but the character is not something that we have consciously to look for. We are the character that they already looked for. When they call us up and they say yes, it's because they saw something. They saw nature on our picture. They saw something that they saw in some demo reel that we showed them, or something that it fits with the idea of this what they call character.
Yeah. The other thing is the character. I highly recommend that everybody reads True and False by David Mamet, which is probably the most heretical book about acting in general, and quite fundamentalist. It's also a very short book, which you'll dust off in an hour and a half. It's a very, very quick read. He says something which is very interesting. He says that as actors, what we have to do is we have to learn how to accept everything and invent nothing. To realize that it's not our job to be there and make it more interesting. That's the job of the writer and occasionally the director. But really our job is there to find what we're, the thing that we're saying, why we're saying it, and what we're trying to achieve with it. That's pretty much it. Because in our lives, as I always say to everybody, we've been kind, we've been cruel, we've been happy, we've been depressed. We've been in love, we've been lost, we've been heroic, we've been leaders, and we've been cowards. We have been all of these things. And at the end of the day, what really defines our particular character? Now, what happens is there's tendencies. There's tendencies in the way that we approach things, in the way that we treat the world. There's tendencies in the way that we react to things. There's other things which I would accuse of as being character, which is the way we speak, the way we hold ourselves, the accent that we have, the profession that we are employed in. All of these things also give character. If you are as a classical dancer in London, is going to be very different from somebody who's going to be working as an electrician in East Kilbride in Scotland. But that's not to say that there's things that they could have in common. Okay, there's all of those things that are going down as well. Very often we confuse the way somebody speaks, or the way they walk, the way they present themselves, the status that they have as character. But really these are adornments. These are the baroque aspects of any individual you're going to come across.
And you know what? When you really do this as you know, as what I would do, what happened if this context would happen to me? What when we are starting to choose with this in mind, then you're going to know a lot about yourself, and then you're going to see that there is really observation of others, of yourself, what is going to give you the imagination that you require in any given moment.
Yeah, it's heady stuff. So character, start with you and work outwards.
Exactly.
That's particularly when it comes to acting on camera, start with you. Your voice, your way of talking, your way of scratching your arse. That's where you start.
Play yourself in the context of the story. That's it, really.
That's it. The rest of it, as Mamet says, is funny walks and funny voices. Right. Okay. Oh, by the way, anybody who's out there on Instagram right now, remember the best way to watch us is down below. You can see the links there. Best way to see us is on YouTube and on Facebook. Remember, if this is your first time here on YouTube, to follow the page, give us a like, and remember, share it. Tell your friends, people who are interested in acting or actors or who are studying somewhere. We've got a lot of great content. What?
I love you. I love how you speak English. I love it. I wish I could do that.
I don't know what she wants.
I don't want anything.
Are you sure? You do. We got to shoot something after this, don't we?
Yeah, no. Okay, so
there's subtext here, but thank you very much. That's nice. I'm glad you love the way I speak English.
Yeah, I think your voice is so nice in English. Okay.
Thank you very much. Right, coming up next.
Point
number next is that one of the most important things, and this applies for any creative pursuit, particularly when it comes to criticizing it, that this is really, really important. The good and bad doesn't exist. All that exists is what works and what doesn't work. Now, why is that important? For example, I always use the example of the film Irreversible, a film by Gaspar Noé with Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel. It's a French film, and it's horrible, right? It's brutal, and I despise it, but my God, it works. Now, why do I use those terms? Well, if I said it was terrible, I would be saying to somebody the film is inept, it's incompetent, it doesn't achieve its goals, but that's not true at all. It does achieve exactly what it's setting out to achieve, and it does it extremely well. It's just I don't like it. Now, that's something that we have to learn how to do with our acting. We have to be able to look at our acting and say, and this is particularly on camera, and say, does it work? Does it achieve what it's setting out to do?
And that is good for a script, you know. Because sometimes I don't like horror movies, for instance, no? But, if it works, if I cannot leave the script on the table because I need to know what is going next, then, well, it works.
So this is the way that we have to learn how to look at our own acting. Now, always it's going to be a little peculiar to see it look. Curious is the word that we use in Spanish, curioso, right? So it's always a bit weird to see ourselves acting, because what we're doing is we're seeing ourselves with our faces reversed. Okay, we're seeing ourselves as everybody else sees us. That's the strange thing, because when we see ourselves in a mirror, we see it the other way around. But when we see ourselves on camera, we're seeing ourselves as everybody else does. So that's the first weird thing. The other weird thing is there's nobody else in the world apart from the fact, we may have a twin who looks exactly like us. So we're now seeing somebody that we've never really seen before in this particular way. The next thing is that when we see ourselves doing something that we didn't expect to see ourselves doing. Okay, that's another peculiar thing. And this comes back to the idea of commitment and being very clear on what we're deciding to do at any given moment. Now, the problem is that most actors don't really like their acting that much. Okay? And what we have to do is we have to not learn to like it, but learn to appreciate it when it works.
Really, when we are talking in terms of good and bad, and it's very good what Scott said before about, in any creative pursuit, not only acting, we cannot base our criticism, our judgment on personal taste. It doesn't help. It doesn't help in the conversations that you're going to have with your other actor or your other, with your director, because, they're going to have opinions. And you have to agree that the best thing is what it works for the actual audience, for the spectator. So, it doesn't matter the opinions of people. What is going to produce more impact is what we're going to be able to, to sort it out between all of us. And that's what we should be really doing. What is the most impactful way of doing that for the spectator? And then we can talk. Then we can talk on the things that work, not in the things that we like in personal taste.
Yeah, otherwise it's impossible to compare Toy Story with The Godfather. Okay?
Impossible.
Because they're two things which are completely different. But we can perhaps measure the degree to which they do or do not work.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, also, we'll never agree with personal tastes. Why? Because, I like red, the other one likes pink. If one person likes something, the other person dislikes it. If I like, something, it's like that.
Well, it's the other thing when it comes down to things like casting as well. And I think this is a very important thing to actually mention here, which is the idea of, why didn't I get the job? It's like, well, why are you going out with this guy? There's another guy over there who's much more attractive. Why are you going out with that girl when you could find, somebody who is, conceivably more, a higher number on the scale of 1 to 10. It really, really doesn't work like that. There's so many organic, pheromonal, intellectual personality things that make somebody more or less attractive to you.
Yes.
Okay?
And it's
and that's taste. That comes down to taste. And taste is very hard to, it's like, I know you and I don't agree on this. I personally think when the actor goes to their agent, could you find out why I didn't get the job? What happens is they go speak to the casting director, who just makes it up because they haven't thought about it. It was just a clear no, right? Basically, 90% of what this actor did had nothing whatsoever to do with them not getting the job. And, they might have been awful. They might have not worked hard enough. And then that's something you don't want to hear. That's not what you should be hearing. Why did they not get the job? They were crappy because they didn't study, or they didn't know what the hell they were doing. That's not what you want to hear, but you could.
I want to hear that. I want to hear that because I have to better myself. But anyway.
But surely you should know about that beforehand.
Exactly. So you should know if you have worked or not.
So could yes, you? So you're right. So let me get this right. So
all the time, what I'm trying to do is to understand if I am wrong about perceptions, if I am wrong about judgments, if my prejudices get in the way of actually knowing things, and that is a hell of a job, because all your life, you're going to have perceptions that are not going to be really true. You're going to, we're going to do judgments in false or in fake news, So it's really, you have to, I think that is a very good advice. One has to see things or judge things by their effectiveness, not by perceptions or likes or dislikes.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about when we review show reels is one of the most important things that you can show somebody is your competence, because that's the biggest thing that could cost money when it comes to putting you in a movie or a TV show. Is this person competent? Does this actor bring added value to the thing that they're doing right now? Do they bring more than is just there in the script? That's a very important consideration.
You know, it's like you know, in movies, what you have is a really, I mean, in theater, what you have is that you have the reaction of whatever you do there in front of your eyes, and you can really understand, you know, what is really the perception of whatever you do. It's you know, when you are in a movie set, you know, you have someone, which is the director, who is the first spectator, you should really respect their job, because what they are there is just to be a spectator, and you know, and really judge if it's believable what you do or not, and that is all. You know, you can actually have tastes and you know, and likes, but you really, a good director is what it does really, is to ask, does that is achieving what we are trying to achieve here in the scene? What is the objective of the scene? What is the objective of the character? What is the objective of this phrase? And there you are going to all the time agree as much as you can, of course, but, you know, because it can be also people that they are trying to prove things. But in reality, in the better of the worlds, what we have to all do is see if what we are trying to achieve, what the expectation of what I had when I was actually reading this text or this script is really working, you know. And sometimes there are subtleties, you know, that you sometimes you try to achieve something and it really you know, gets good in Madrid and bad in Italy, you know, because the culture is different, and these things these nuances are very, very nice. Exactly. Ma che cosa?
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Okay. So this is the next one we've got going on here,
which is
nerves or actor's block. Right. This is something that I never really heard back in the U of K, which was the idea of what they say here is estoy bloqueado, which means I am blocked, which means I can't do what I'm supposed to do because I've decided that I can't move forward myself. And I think it's something that I said, that if you're on a film set and you're going to shoot something, you can't say that. You can't even think that.
No,
this is not on the cards.
It's not in the professional.
It's like I think I said it. I think I mentioned in the book. This is like a woman going into labor and saying, "I can't have the baby. I'm not feeling it right now."
Yeah,
right?
Impossible.
I'm sorry. We're going to do this by hook or by crook. We're going to get that baby out.
You cannot say, I can't act, I am too nervous, to yourself or to others.
And this is a recommendation I have to all actors out there. In fact, anybody. Don't ask people if they're nervous. You know why? It makes them nervous. Don't.
Yes.
Don't. Now, this is the other thing. This is a way that there's a coping strategy with nerves.
Well, it's a kind of an excuse, isn't it? Is an excuse of is a fear of not doing it right. You know, is you know, is a diagnosis of something that is supposed to, you know, make us empathetic with the other person, really. But it's an expression of someone having fear, being a coward, being not committed with the things that they have to do.
Well, there's also a very peculiar passive aggressive thing that people ask when other people are nervous, because really what they want to do is they want to know if you're as nervous as they are.
Yes, they want to feel accompanied.
Well, no, it's one of the things that happens is that people will get nervous for you. But don't worry, they're getting nervous because they don't know what you have planned. But you know what you have planned, hopefully. That's an important thing as well.
There is a thing that I want also to address that is very nice, and something that you discovered, the words, not me, which was this, you remember to like hack yourself, you know, hack this physical response of fear and actually convert it in excitement. Explain it, please.
Well, the idea is that this is quite straightforward, is that the way we feel when we're in a nervous state is usually there because there's something that's going to happen, but we don't have any idea of what it is. Okay, but we know we got to do it. That unknown creates fear, like anything which is unknown. The simplest unknown is that of the dark. Sometimes, you know, the reason that people are frightened of dying is because they're afraid of what might lie beyond her. Please see To Be or Not to Be, William Shakespeare. All of those things are based on the idea of facing the unknown. the actual truth of when we're nervous, when we're about to do something, is what happens. There's a physiological response, which is we sweat, our adrenaline begins pumping, we have an elevated heartbeat, all of those sorts of things. You know, there's certain things, if we're extremely nervous, there's certain things in our body that begin to shut down. We stop blinking, all of those sorts of things. Now, that is exactly the same thing that happens to us when excited.
We are excited, and we have this feel that, you know, that you can convert this excitement, you know, in something that is nice and positive, right? So it's just a little bit, an adjustment from the fear to actually feel the excitement. Try it. You're going to see.
So the concept here is quite simple. So when you're feeling this elevated state, instead of dreading what you're going to do, is try to look forward to it. Because what you're going to do is you're going to execute your plan. Neil, who's obviously very funny, he says, Scott, you move your microphone a lot, but Assumpta, you rarely touch yours. Does that mean Scott is more nervous than Assumpta? No, Scott is Scott's much more conscious of the distance that I have from the microphone than Assumpta does.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So, yeah,
but it's something I'm learning. I'm learning.
You know?
It's 2 years. I'm learning.
Yeah, you're eventually. You're
you know, they put me the things I don't.
No, so just come and give me some. So
give me some.
So the back to the idea of nerves. Remember, see if you can convert it into excitement, into something which is positive.
Yeah, you just take what you're feeling, you know, and convert it in something positive. You know, something wonderful to about to take place.
And more than that, just go back and focus on the things that you're going to be doing.
Try smiling, no? Because it has been proven that your hormones also, you can hack them and trick them by doing exactly what you're supposed to be, which is if you want to be powerful, you can also do hormonally. You can actually
increase the testosterone in your body by standing in a powerful pose, like the Superman pose. That will actually make you feel more powerful.
It's very simple, but we have been doing that for centuries. Actors, I mean, you know, we are able to trick ourselves in the sense of power by doing certain positions. And now, you know, in 2010, I think, at a study at Oxford University, they did it, and they said, yes, you know, if you do that, you increase your hormonal levels into...
It's actually at Harvard.
Is it Harvard? Oh, Oxford, yes, Harvard, yes, true.
So you're actually capable to
trick your brain is really...
Yeah, well, this is the other thing. This is why when we are feeling we have bad news to tell, I think this is one of the reasons that we have a tendency to smile. It's also when we're my theory is that we are micromanaging our hormonal levels on a constant basis. And through that, this is what gives this orchestra, the symphony of responses, gestures, and things that we recognize in each other, which we recognize positive things, negative things. We recognize a thought. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Is this whole idea of pausing and all the rest of it? Is it really that what happens is we listen to people thinking, which is very peculiar. We can't read minds, but we can certainly have we're pretty good at reading thoughts. Okay,
another thing that I want to talk to you about today, because also Neil was also it was emotion, the concept of emotion.
Oh, right. Okay, let me get rid of that. That's one thing. Right. We put this here.
No one cares what you feel.
No one. No one cares what you feel. No one. Nobody cares that you're sad, upset, happy. Nobody cares about that. They just want to know what you're going to do. All emotions are a side effect of people wanting things that they can't have. So, for example, it says here, Neil says, right, I'm going to get rid of it.
I might know.
One second, let me put that on screen for you. Okay, so here we go.
I find I might know the lines inside out, but I'm focusing so much on getting the emotions across that I completely fudge the lines and make up my own. I find it hard to be in the moment while concentrating on the words. Well, interesting.
Your cat in the picture looks very focused. Cat obviously spent a lot of time in the actor's studio. It's actually not a cat. It's a method actor who's been on the show Cats for the last 17 years. The transformation is complete. Look, one of the things you need to think about in terms of emotions, okay, these are important things. we think that we have to achieve some kind of emotion because it's going to make us more believable and it's going to touch the audience and all the rest of it. To hell with that. What we have to do is we have to play the thing that we're going to play. We have to explain. We have to intimidate. We have to confess. We have to do all of those particular things. And the difficulty or ease at which we do it will create another thing which is called emotion. Okay? When you hear news that somebody close to you has died, you don't immediately burst into tears. You don't. The first thing is you go through the whole stages. You don't believe it. Then you get angry. And then you negotiate. And then you accept it. And then you feel sad. But the fact of the matter is that our first reaction is rarely to emotion. Our first reaction to something which is extreme is usually confusion. It's usually a search. We're trying to find out what this means to us or anybody else, and how it happened and what it is. Okay? It's like when you hear somebody committed suicide, your first question is how? That comes back to our need for negative news, our need to remember things which will aid us in our survival. That's what those things come from. Mm-hmm. He's sick. What's wrong with him? Okay, we're trying to constantly do those sorts of things. So in terms of emotion, the emotion is something which happens when we are engaged in the action of doing, seeking, or attempting to achieve something else that's completely different.
Exactly. It's a byproduct of actually play with commitment. The conflict and the action that we want to pursue more, the conflict that we cannot get whatever we want, then more impotent we're going to feel. But we have to concentrate. Let me read here something that you said in this book. It says
something that I said.
Yeah, I said. It says actors sometimes say that acting is their therapy, and for many it is. However, it is the audience that really undergoes therapeutic journey. Their emotion is more important than yours. That's it. That is exactly it.
I read a thing interestingly the other day. They did, these diabolical scientists, they put electrodes in a monkey's brain, I think it was a chimpanzee, to see what things would be fired in the brain when it was eating a banana, right? The way you do. Then what they wanted to study was to see what happened to this chimpanzee's brain when it watched a video of a chimpanzee eating a banana. And what they discovered was the same parts of the brain fired. Mm. Now, what does that tell us about stories? What does that tell us about our relationship to fiction, film, TV, whatever it might be? It tells us that by watching other people going through a certain thing, the most obvious thing is pornography. Mm-hmm. By people going through a certain thing, that it creates a reaction and a stimulus in us. That's why when you're hungry, you probably shouldn't. You can't watch a recipe video on YouTube because you're just going to be like, I can't do this anymore. Okay, because you're already being fired up by that. Now that's the most physical and base response with hunger, sex, whatever it might be. But also when it comes to the idea of being able to relate to characters is the fact that we empathize with them. And what does that really mean? As an audience member, we begin to feel what they feel, understand their motivations, and begin to take part in their struggle. That's why we go back and we watch it day after day, because we find it entertaining. What we're really doing is to entertain the idea that these things are happening to us. Now, there's a great example that David Mamet gives in his book True and False, when he says, in terms of pretending and what we do as actors, we all do that. When we get a phone call from God knows where, we think, oh my God, the plane has crashed. Oh my God, there's been an accident. When we go to the doctor, we always imagine that the doctor's going to tell us that we've got cancer and we've got 3 weeks to live. We always do that. They're going to say, we found something. That's what we all do. We all prepare ourselves for that. So this is, when we come back to this idea of emotion, remember, we have to take these things as they arrive to us. And we're going to come to some kind of conclusion about how that makes us feel. But that's incidental. It's never the objective. What we have to do is we have to play well. And if we play well, we're going to get a goal and we're going to win the championship. But the objective is not to win the championship. The objective is not to cry. The objective is to stay on purpose and do what the character's supposed to do in the scene. And nobody sets out to cry, apart from
actors.
4-year-old children and actors.
Yes. So be careful about wanting to have an emotion, because it's the worst that we can do. First of all, they're going to see us doing that. You know, they're not going to see exactly, perhaps, you know, someone that is not really into this world, you know, but they're not going to believe us.
Well, let me give you a good example. Everybody either has kids or knows people with kids, and they've all seen a 4-year-old, you know. And what does everybody do? Everybody's just like, yeah, all right, whatever. What do they want? Okay, because it's an extension of what babies do. Okay, people who haven't had healthy childhoods in one way or another also learn that still works as an adult. Okay?
We are so quick to recognize emotions and to recognize why these things happen, that we see that if a person, you know, is you know, it's like an X-ray, you know, that is only an emotional state because the state of mind or something, we know that's gonna stop. So our reaction as spectators, being there, is just okay. Don't worry, you know, it's going to be, we are not crying ourselves. And what do you want as an actor? That the spectator cries. So it's completely two different, completely objectives. You cannot be worried on having emotion because that people don't care.
Okay. The other reason that we don't do it is because when people see it and they see it as false, they become resentful. And when somebody becomes resentful, they don't want to be near you. That's why if an old lady falls down in the street, she'll get up as quickly as she can. But if a professional football player is touched briskly on the shoulder in a football match, he'll fall down like he's just had his leg amputated. And what does that create to the 60,000 fans that are there? They whistle and they boo. Why? Because it creates resentment, because we know it's fake. Real people try to hide what hurts.
Exactly.
Actors try to show it. And that brings me back to this idea of character again. Just think for a second. What percentage of our energy you use on a daily basis to show everybody who you are? And what you're going to find is you use no energy whatsoever. In fact, if you are using some energy to impress somebody, you're going to feel like a raging dickhead. And that's something that's a sort of self-resentment that we have, where we actually begin to feel dirty and monstrous.
You know, there is also, understand, there is one thing that is also, it helped me a lot. When you have an extreme situation, what do? Well, you don't know, because perhaps in your life you didn't have, extreme emotions or extreme, but after a while, you're going to have some, your father dies, your mother dies, something that, is going to put you in something that is emotionally overwhelming, When that happens, what do you really are worried about is perhaps your own death, perhaps that this other person, you're never going to see him or see her afterwards. So, this idea of impotence is but there is also another ways of finding emotion that has nothing to do, or tears or whatever, that has nothing to do with bad experiences. And that is something that I like you all to reflect, because, for instance, I saw you many times, crying with beauty, which is a very interesting thing, when you are, you are looking for these little insects, or, or
yes, I cry at bugs. No. But I can explain why I cry. Why something which is truly transcendently beautiful makes me cry, and that's because it's something which is filled with meaning, which I'm incapable of verbalizing or vocalizing,
exactly. And that overwhelms you. Yeah.
And it overwhelms me,
yeah.
Because sometimes you'll see something which is so stunning and beautiful. It's usually not something which is static. For example, that can happen to me. I remember being in the Basilica, the cathedral in Escorial, listening to a concert, and it was a combination of these young classical musicians playing classical music in a beautiful setting that was built 400 or 500 years ago, and everything is absolutely perfectly preserved. The acoustic is magnificent, and we are there enjoying something which is so transcendently and abstractly human that it becomes divine.
And divine also because it is the moment. Is really, you are there for this moment, and this moment is never going to happen again.
It's like there's a great video. It's on YouTube. It's at a Green Day concert. It's before the concert starts. And it's a single static shot of the entire crowd of about 65,000 people. And they put Bohemian Rhapsody over the loudspeakers, and 65,000 people sing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
from beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And there's something extraordinarily moving in that, because it's the only way you could explain it is a religious experience. But isn't that what we look for when we go to the theater? We go for a religious and cathartic experience. Isn't that what we want to do when we go to a rock concert and we want them to play our favorite song? When where it comes from and who we are and what we've experienced with that thing communes in the middle, and we have a single, unique, unrecordable, even with a mobile phone experience. Those are the things which also are very moving to us.
Yeah, it's moving to us when we in movies, for instance, a lot of times you say, why did I cry here? And it's a really interesting thing, because you perhaps don't see why, but you cried. And sometimes and because it's the theme that moves you, it's because, the looking for a father or something that is something that, that reminds you to your own, conflict or to your own context. And that's what we are doing all the time. Why? Because of survival. So when a person is in front of you, has a single emotion that is really an extreme emotion, what you do is to check if this person really has a reason for it. And if it's just an intellectual reason, you know that is not that important. So you are not concerned about crying. You are concerned about,
I was very mean one day in our old office in our school. We had an intern who was doing
nothing, really.
Doing work experience. Yeah, they weren't doing a damn thing. They were doing work experience with us.
Yes.
My experience was of them not working, basically. So they came late as usual, and I sat them down. I said, why are you late? Just be on time. I'm not a tough guy. And she burst into tears, and she was like, and I had to go, listen, you know that we teach film acting here, right? You know that this is what we do, and I'm going to tell you that you're faking this, and I don't believe you. And she was like, and I said, look, this works with your dad, it doesn't work with me. Okay, so you don't have to do that. Can we just act like grown-ups and get on with our day? Because one of the things that we all are innately good at is telling when somebody is lying. We know it. But one of the things is we always like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, because we like to think that perhaps we're wrong. Mm-hmm. There's some great comments here which I'd like to get into.
We're going to address them. Look, Esperanza Vilades, who was many years ago, she was one of our students, says, and now she's a teacher, yes, in Murcia, says, thanks, you're very helpful. As an acting teacher, I know the job is more simple. Study, be prepared, and get ready to do and react. Then we do at school, but there is a big theory around it. Your comments are great, love you. Thank you, Esperanza.
Gracias. This is another thing which I put here, which I said in my thing before, which is tell your gurus to go fuck themselves. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's you doing the job. Throw out all the stuff that's useless to you. Ignore the things which are not helpful, that you find distracting. Don't try to work by somebody else's criteria. Try to develop your own. Understand that look, this is when I work with actors. I work from the basis that every actor I work with is a genius. They are a diamond inside a rock. All I've got to do is help them get the rock off it, off the rest of them, and just be purely, authentically who they are. Because we are all 100% real and authentic 24 hours a day, up until the point somebody says action, and then after they say cut. I mean, no, it's true. Is that we
then we start having problems just by being being there.
No, so what I suggest is, like, if we can imagine that the take when we're acting on camera is like the bald spot, what we have to take is the truth and authenticity of who we are before it. It's like a comb over. We have to comb that over this part where we're supposed to be acting. Okay? We have to allow that truth of what and who we are to come in and infect the thing that we're doing. Now, it might be the person, the character that we're playing is sort of different from who we are, but then what we do is we're maintaining those physical and vocal kind of things that are going there, because you can't stay in character, but you can certainly stay in the same state as the character. And that's another indication. I'm not the sort of person who can laugh and joke around and then play a death scene. I can't do that. There are actors who can do that, and good for them. But hormonally, physiologically, biologically,
difficult.
it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
It's very, it's
which
very tough.
brings us with the emotional state. But with that, I think it would be nice to say goodbye.
Well, I would like to just address
one.
See,
more?
so Nexus, I'm not entirely who you are, Nexus, if we know each other.
It's in YouTube, right?
It's in YouTube.
It says, "Hey Scott, I think it's harder to play a stoic character compared to an emotional one. I prefer emotional over stoic characters, but I do admire actors who can play the straight mind woman."
Now, Nexus, I'm going to tell you why you find it easier. You find it easier because when you're playing somebody who's emotional, you feel like you're doing something. One of the things that we have, particularly in theatre, is we have no real indication that what we're doing is actually effective or it works. So what we do is when we feel something, we actually feel like we're engaged in the job of acting. No,
Yes.
it's true, because we feel different. Something has changed in us, and we feel like we're now doing something that we don't do on a daily basis.
Yes.
The actual fact, the fact of the matter is, and the emotional characters, if they're played emotionally, create a sense of rejection in the person watching them.
Absolutely. Is rejection or saying, okay, well, yeah, I understand your pain, but, tomorrow is going to be better. Don't worry, everything is going to be okay. What I want is you to cry. So you don't cry,
Yeah,
and the others are going to cry.
And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to tell you this, Nexus. People will cry more often at a stoic character than they'll cry at an emotional character.
Yes.
I said it.
Yes.
I said it.
Yes, because, they have to invent, what's going to happen to them, and they have to compare more than if you give them the emotion right away. If you demonstrate them your emotion, where you want to go. Your job as an actor is really one, which is generate questions. If you have already the answer, say, okay, yeah, he's crying. Okay,
No,
good.
you also
tomorrow is going to be better.
You also get
Where do you want to go with that? You go very, very short way.
You also get let me just see where that is. You also get Stoicism and Acting as well. That's another thing that people forget about. Not Stoicism and Acting, Stoicism and Writing. That's when you'll see something which is written in a way which is stoic. For example, the first thing that comes to mind is Forrest Gump when he talks about his Jenny or his mother. He quite simply says, she died on a Wednesday. Right? That's it. That's all he says. Mm-hmm. And also to go to another Tom Hanks moment is in Saving Private Ryan, when Matt Damon has that beautiful speech when he talks about the last time he saw his brothers together in the barn on their farm at home. He tells them that. And then they ask the captain, who's played by Tom Hanks, about his wife, and he says, no, that's just for me. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they had actually written this big, long monologue.
And he said no.
This is better if I don't say
better
that.
If I don't say it.
I don't say that because,
course.
But there's an enormous sense of, they really know what they're doing, those guys. Here's...
Exactly. Here, Neil says, I was just thinking about Forrest Gump. He internalized a lot, and it makes you want to feel the emotions for him. Exactly.
Well, one of the reasons that Forrest Gump works so elegantly is because we understand what Forrest is going through, but he doesn't. And that's what moves us so much, is that from the perspective of being outside, for being an audience member, we can see what this means and what's going on. But he doesn't get that. So what the empathy that we have as viewers is that we project that onto him, and of course it's incredibly emotional, okay, and very pure. I mean, there's an element of, we could say about Forrest Gump, it's got a lot in common with the film Being There, which is a film. Is it Hal Hartley? It stars Peter Sellers and Shirley MacLaine, which is an absolute classic. And if you haven't seen it, go hunt it down. It's called Being There. My one piece of advice is, do not watch the credits. As soon as the film was over and the credits roll, stop watching it, because they have bloopers over the credits, and it completely destroys the way you feel at the end of the film.
It's one of my favorite movies. I always say Being There, yes, as an example.
Here, just to finish up, because I want to go through this, and I want to say hi to Shiva. Good evening, sir. How the devil are you? Right, so, Nexus. One good example of getting genuine emotion out of actors is Alien. Ridley Scott didn't tell anyone that the alien would pop out that guy's chest. Spoilers. All of the reactions are genuine terror. I think that's very useful up to a point. I'm very interested to see a film which is on Amazon right now called The Sun, which stars James McAvoy. What I've been told about this film is all the other actors knew what was going to go on in the scenes and what their lines were. Mm-hmm. The main actor, James McAvoy, was going to have to discover it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it was sort of done as a game. So everything you see from James McAvoy, who's an extraordinarily accomplished Scottish actor, who I still don't understand why he wasn't nominated for an Oscar for the film Split. I mean, how many roles do you have to play in a movie, for goodness sake? So he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen, just like life. So, you know, I'm not a big fan of extorting reactions from actors. No. For example, what's his name? I want to say it's not Peter Bogdanovich. William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, very famously in the last scene, to get what he wanted to get out of the actor, he slapped him in the face. You know, well done, Billy, but there's a good chance you're going to get your lights punched out. There's a lot of people that, for example, David Cronenberg in The Dead Zone, to get that reaction whenever he shook hands with somebody from Christopher Walken, is he would fire a starting pistol. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's cheating.
It's cheating, and we don't want that. We want, as actors, control what we are doing ourselves. If not, we are kind of puppets, isn't it? We want to produce our things first. It's our job. Come on. It's not our job, right? React to things. It's our job to think and to choose things.
Okay.
That is our elections. It's our power. The power is not really react.
The other thing I want to say about Alien is that if anybody thinks that there was a special effect on the table that had a little monster that came out of it, and that nobody knew what was going to happen, they were dreaming. The real reason they were shocked is they had blood thrown in their faces. That was the reason that they were shocked. They read the script, they knew what was going to happen. It's a very complicated gag to put together. The reason that they said, what's her name? Veronica, oh God, I can't remember her name, who plays Lambert. One of the things that they were shocked by was they got a face full of, they threw buckets of blood on them. That's the thing that gave them that reaction. They weren't expecting it to be that big, but they knew what was going to happen. It didn't like, oh my God, there's things coming out of John Hurt's stomach. That's a very complicated thing. You need a false table. You need his head to be above there. It's going to take about 4 hours to set up. Yes. You're going to shoot it with 2 or 3 cameras so you get the reactions and everything else like that. The thing that really freaked them out was they got tons of blood thrown at them.
It's very interesting for me, being an actress, to understand what it triggers me to actually cry. What it triggers me to have an emotion, and I can see that in movies. When I'm watching movies and and I understand that something touches me profoundly, and then it's a moment where I think, why is that? Because I want to grab this moment and be able to repeat it. Right? That's what actors do. Observation and. It's very interesting. Sometimes they are things that you don't know, and through the years, after that you watch the movie, 3 times or whatever, and you watch it again and says, that's why. Sometimes we don't know why we are crying, and that is a signal that there is still hope. And I'm explaining that. Why? Because if you know it all, really, life is, so it's very interesting when you have these moments where something surprises you, and when there is something that is an emotion that gets you, it's good also to know that that there are things that they are really able to move.
Let me tell you something, and I defy anybody to go look at this and not be moved. We're currently writing a play that's set in ancient Rome, and one of my favorite films is Gladiator, and I was always curious to know whether there was any live performances of the music. And anyway, I found one. If you look for the "We Are Free," "Now We Are Free" by Hans Zimmer and Lisa Gerrard, you'll find a live recording of it on YouTube. That's not what moved me. What moved me was, in the comments below there, I was reading down them, and it was, this is great. I love this music, etc. It's very interesting to see that sometimes. And a few comments down, there was a man who said, my father died recently. This was his favorite piece of music. I can't hear this music without thinking of him and all the time that we spent together, which is a beautiful sentiment, and it's quite lovely just to think about that. But the reason that I was so moved is then I looked underneath it. It said 500 or so comments, and I started reading the comments. And the thing that moved me was that there's people who took a moment out of their day to wish this person well, to send them love and send them positivity, and talk about that it's beautiful that he could share this. And it went on, and people told their own stories about their fathers and all the rest of it, and how they'd seen the movie or how they listened to the music. And they shared all of these things, and they didn't have to do that. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, all putting a heart, sending best wishes. And for me, I found that incredibly touching. Each one I read was more moving than the next.
Of course, because you were in that, in that zone of.
But the other reason it was so moving to me was the idea that all over the world, that people can find a point of empathy with something terrible that's happened to somebody that lost their father, and yet are willing to accompany with them, be with them, and send them love and good wishes. And there's something and those are the things which I find very moving, is the idea that when we can find human beings, how we meet on such a fundamental, pure, and hopefully love-filled point, that there's something quite simply
moving,
dripping in meaning and divine there.
Of course, in meaning, exactly, dripping in meaning. Yes. Look at what Jose Medina says, because it's interesting, because I really comment on that before. It says, this reminds me that I cried when I met Assumpta in person. I don't know why, but those unexpected tears were so good. Yeah, I remember that, Jose. I remember that. I was like surprised. I didn't know. And I remember you were moved. You were shivering. I didn't. I just I just embrace you and trying to give you comfort. But yeah.
Well, I think one of the peculiar things is that when people have, particularly you, because a lot of people have seen, you've made hundreds of movies, people have seen you on film and television, all the rest of it. People have seen us through through this little window that we have here onto the Facebook, YouTube, which, by the way, if you're on YouTube, remember to give us a like and follow the channel.
Exactly.
And also, if you're on Facebook, remember to give us a like. Don't get rid of your like. Give us a like. Look into my eyes. Don't look around my eyes. And you're under. You will give us a like and subscribe. And you're back. So, just the other thing, if you wanna join us in the family of film, Familia de Cine, you can go patreon.com/Assumpta Serna.
There's the
look
one.
Into my eyes. Look into my eyes. Don't look around my eyes. Look into my eyes. And you're under. You will join Patreon at patreon.com/Assumpta Serna.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you joined Patreon.
And you're back. There we go. And you're back. There we go. That's it. Those are the things when you actually get to meet something. And the one thing I've always hoped is that if anybody meets us outside of what we do, they're going to meet exactly the same people. Because quite frankly, the comb over doesn't exist for us. We just are what we are all the time, which is always, I think, one of the most important things. This is the other thing that's very important for us, for actors and acting, is that we believe that actors should support each other. They should be positive. They should always celebrate when somebody else does well. Really, we actually have to sort of like stop judging other people and try and work out what it is that they're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
Of course.
And
what we can offer to them, instead of saying, separating from them, because they, I don't know, we think that they read something.
Right. Luciana Berencina says,
OMG, little brain.
Little Britain. Little Britain. Right.
What does it mean, OMG?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I can't believe you don't know what that means. No. Right. Let me just deal with Luciana. Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes. Don't look around my eyes. Look into my eyes. And you're under. Look, this got nothing. This is completely original. It doesn't come from Little Britain. And you're back. Okay, there we go. Right, so
That is from...
it's from Little Britain. It's a stage hypnotist that Matt
exactly.
Lucas does. It's a character that he plays, which I've always found is quite wonderful. Mira, just to finish up, right? So just to say, a very famous one that Neil Cochran points out here, which is when Alan Rickman said they were going to drop him on a count of 3, but they let him go on 1. Yeah, the other thing was the last thing they shot him in the entire movie, and that was the first movie he ever did. I think he did it aged, I think he was 49 when he did that film. But yeah, those bastards, they did that. But it's, I hate to say it, but it's brilliant. But then again, the entire damn film is. Right, well, here we go. So Bill Murray says, "Que profundos están hoy." That means how profound we are today.
Says, well, if I ever get to meet you guys in person, I won't blink for an hour beforehand so I can get the tears flowing.
Yeah, well,
that
thank you.
refers to another.
Just remember, if you want, 2 weeks ago we did a review of our friend from the Actors Academy who says the best way to not cry, the best way to cry is don't blink. Just don't blink. That's his idea, that you're going to cry if you don't blink.
Okay.
Bloody idiot.
So Francisco says, you're very helpful, guys. Always have a great evening night.
Okay. Thank you very much, Francisco.
Yes.
Luciano, Belmari, Neil, Jose, my darling friend, Jose. Shiva, it's great to see you, buddy.
Nexus.
Nexus.
Esperanza very
Vilades.
Nice. Very nice to see you
bien
here.
De verte.
Yes, because also we went to the Murcia SAT school and we were talking about you with the people there, and it's nice. It's nice that you were here.
And Osdo fue.
Bring if you want on the beginning of April is going to be on Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the week. We can invite you to one of our exclusive gatherings. It would be great if you could come.
That's the other thing. This is our email. Our email address, which is Scott or Assumpta at familiadecine.com. Right?
Yes.
You can always find us there.
Yeah, because Esperanza, I want to explain to you this Familia Decine. I think it would be nice for you also, and we're going to have a great time if you come.
Absolutely. Right. And also Pablo de Su Lord, if you're still out there. Aye.
Pablo was there.
He was.
Oh, I don't see. And also Veronica.
Always.
I love her.
Respect. Right. Okay. That's our show for tonight.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much. And we'll be back this time, same bat time, same bat channel.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday at 8 p.m. in Spain, 7 p.m. in the UK, and some other times in the rest of the world, which are far too complicated to work out right now. But in the meantime, just remember, upwards
and
onwards. All right, this is a little after show. That was quite emotional. It's interesting that it's very interesting how the uninflected story moves us, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I think that is because this thing of surprise.
Lucinda! Oh, I forgot to tell her about photos. Oh, you're still there, right? Are you still there, Lucinda? Right. Okay. This is the story about photos. What you need to do is you need to decide very clearly on the sort of things that you want to show. Right. Remember, for anybody out there who wants to have their photograph taken, the most useful thing you can ever think if you're on a photo call or a red carpet is you look down the lens of the camera and you think, I am beautiful and I have a secret.
Well, that's
try it. No, try it. Try it right now. Go do selfie yourself and think, I am beautiful and I have a secret. And you will see a whole world there, because the trouble with actors is what we're attempting to do is to freeze ourselves in the photo that we want to have.
No.
What you actually have to do is you actually have to create the moment in which you want something, or you're hiding something, or whatever it might be, and allow the photographer to photograph the arc of that moment.
Is the arc, exactly. Is the arc. And remember, when you do pictures, you really have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, or the things that you want to show, that you want to say to others. because that is the most important thing. You cannot go there and expect that the photographer does all the job for you. You have to prepare yourself. You have to understand what are these profiles that you want the others to give you. You have to understand what is your weaknesses, what are your strengths, what you want to project as an actor, what kind of roles you want them to give you. That is very important. If you don't do that, then you're lost, and then it happens that you're afraid of this lens. But it's the contrary. You have to give a lot of things to the lens. You have to give exactly what you want. And that it can vary. There is various things that you can do, based on the profiles or the characters that you think you can portray. That you can really think on this phrase, not only I'm beautiful and I have a secret, but other things that really gives you into that mood, into that character, into what you think that you want to express with that, or and it's not putting faces. Is actually, is actually having this arc of what this phrase means to you. You have to give things. It's not that
you have to, even if it's just you're thinking something. Look, Lucinda, you come across as an educated, strong woman, sort of, just from looking at your little thumbnail photograph there. So what you want to do is you want to have something where you're thinking, don't mess with me. Or you're thinking, you think you can mess with me. Or you're thinking, you'll never beat me. Or you're thinking, why don't you want to beat me? Whatever it might be, it's the thought that the photograph has to capture.
It's the story that you're telling in the picture. You have to tell stories. You have to, to understand that what we are doing is we're asking things to the others. It's a dialogue. Also, the pictures. It's not, it's not that they have to come to you. No, you really also have to wanting to say things. So if you don't have this plan, then you're lost. So it's like have 4, 5, 6 of these phrases, have these 4, 5 or 6 profiles that you think that you can do, and prepare yourself everything.
And remember, it's not there to accidentally capture you looking good. Okay, that's a side effect of being in action, having an active thought in your head when they hit the button. Okay, which is at the end of the day their job. Now, I've seen Assumpta in a photo shoot, which is quite a spectacle, because what she does is she goes like this. It's like, I'm going into one thing, they take a picture. I'm going into another thing, they take a picture. So what she's doing is she's constantly moving between these states, ideas, and thoughts, and she's presenting herself to the camera. Now, you say quite an interesting thing here, Lucinda, if I can find where my damn pointer is, because it seems to be absolutely... Where the hell is it? Okay.
Is it kind of the same with a microphone?
She says...
Make love to the camera.
Yeah, so let me get back here. She says, so she's saying kind of the same with the microphone, make love to the camera. No, this is an interesting point, and it's good that you should bring this up. What happens is you're not going to make love to the camera, but the camera wants to make love to you. Just remember that the camera is completely besotted by you. It's trying to work out what you're thinking, trying to work out what you want, trying to work out what your secret is. So the thing is, you don't have to make love to the camera. You're already beautiful and perfect and divine in your own particular way. The camera wants to be able to see that. The camera is completely non-judgmental. What happens when we feel uncomfortable in front of a camera? Because we're projecting ourselves on seeing the picture afterwards that's being taken, and we don't have any idea what it's going to be like, and thus we go, right? And it becomes false because we're trying to freeze that image. All the photographs taken of us when we're in action, we're in conversation, they're animated, they're alive, they're filled with thought and sparkling with those moments that are going on. What we have to do is, when we're having a photograph taken, is we can't leave it down to accident, as Assumpta says. We actually have to make a list of the things that we want to show and come up with an interesting thing to think. We might want to think, why did you hurt me? Or you might want to think of, you've never met anybody like me before.
And then there is something that I say in these courses that I have, which is we are trying also to understand what kind of profiles you want and what kind of characters the people are going to give you, and etc. And there is a point also when it's interesting, because when you are in front of a camera, not only is that you have to give things, but also you have to also hide things, and you can go from hiding to actually wanting to communicate. That is what it gives me the actual flow of the
photo shoot.
Of the photo shoot, and that also is try to think that you command the click. It's not that I'm that he's gonna tell me what to do. No, I'm gonna tell him what to do. The click. Is you have the idea that sometimes, when in photo shoots, that you have to really give yourself and whatever the photographer. No. They want things, because they are, but we want other things, and the objectives have to match. If you don't have any objective, then, you're going to lose an opportunity to really tell what you want to tell.
That's about it, really. It says here, Neil, there is no camera. No, there is a camera, but if it helps you, imagine that the camera is Margot Robbie, and she just wants to jump your bones. And you've got all the attention, more attention than you've ever had in the world. Not only do you have attention, but they're gonna take a snapshot of that attention. I learned virtually everything I've ever. It started my journey to understanding everything about film acting. Started in a session of photos with a photographer in Los Angeles called Vincent Versace. And he said one thing to me, and that was like the world exploding in front of me. He said, hide in the lens. Hide what you're thinking in the lens of the camera. Now, what you have with a camera is you have somewhere where you can put your most intimate thoughts, fears, wishes, wills, actions, everything that can go in there. And that's a really good way to think of your relationship with the camera. When you're acting for the camera, you're not looking directly into it, but you're hiding things inside it. That's, if there's anything that you can take away from today, apart from relaxation, concentration, forgetting about character, good and bad, all of those different things, one of the most useful things that you will get is this relationship you have with this object, which is doing nothing more than wanting to see what we're thinking, feeling, and wanting.
Is the eyes of someone, is a witness, is your friend. He wants to know. That is what you have to.
And remember, we're not showing it to the camera. We're hiding it into the camera. This is when you tell a joke, and you realize that only one person is going to get that joke, but that's why you're telling the joke. That person is the camera.
Thank you very much to all of you. Have a very nice weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Thanks, Neil. He says that helps a great deal. And Lucinda says, I do have objectives and ideas. Thank you both so much for your advice. Love you guys. Thank you, Lucinda. And remember, we're here every day apart from Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in the afternoon in Spanish time, in Spanish. On Thursdays, we're here at 8 p.m. in English. Next week, we're going to be reviewing some more show reels. I got a few that people have sent me, which are very interesting. Remember, to subscribe to all the things that we're doing, follow us on Instagram. Assumpta's Instagram is fascinating right now because she's going through a lot of old material and stuff that throughout all her career, which is actually, it's amazing stuff, actually. That's at Assumpta Serna, which is pretty easy to remember. Remember, you can always find us at these email addresses. Whatever you got, remember, the reason that we are here and we started doing this when the whole pandemic started and the confinement is that we wanted to share what we did, what we've done, what we do, and what we know with everybody out there, because there's a lot of nonsense. And there's a lot of things which aren't useful that just make actors depressed and not want to do it anymore. And I think that's bollocks, quite frankly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we'll be back again tomorrow at 6.
Yes.
Bye for now. Oh, and if you're in Madrid, you can come see us at the...
Oh, yes, it's true. At the Espacio Rastro.
Espacio Rastro at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, where we're going to be talking about women and film culture.
And art.
And art. So there you go. Bye for now.